Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the much beloved actor who's low-key based, Chris Pratt. Chris has once again been getting attacked by social justice warriors who are jealous because the man is so successful and well-liked. And also, they of course hate Chris Pratt because he's a straight white male who also goes to church and loves his wife as well. God forbid a conservative family man like Chris make it in Hollywood in current year. Last time we talked about this movie star was back around the 4th of July holiday a few weeks ago. Back then, Pratt got flagged for wearing a "Don't Tread on Me" t-shirt. This of course is not offensive in the slightest. In fact, "Don't Tread on Me" is a rather patriotic and pro-American thing to support and wear. Perhaps being pro-USA is another reason leftists hate Christopher though. They of course hate Americans almost as much as they hate white people, and quite frankly, they're pretty intertwined as well. Then before this last controversy, it was last year when we talked about another attack on Chris P. Last summer, gender pay gap stories started to come about, circling around Mr. Pratt because he was apparently making more money than the no-name redhead actress who co-starred with him in the Jurassic World sequel. Obviously, Chris Pratt gets paid more because he's more famous, and his name attached to projects gets more people to watch and buy tickets. Not to mention in that movie, he had harder and more strenuous acting duties. Regardless, if they aren't attacking Chris for being white or American, being a man is another avenue they use to slander the guy. Now, for today's news story, we're talking about another YouTuber who jumped in on the Chris Pratt hate train. Nicki Swift made a video about the guy called "The Shady Side of Chris Pratt." This was their desperate attempt to jump on board the Chris Pratt hate bandwagon that was going on back in July when his shirt controversy sparked a few weeks ago. Unfortunately for Nicki Swift though, this video did not go over too well with their audience, or with anyone for that matter. Not only is it getting way more dislikes than likes, but also, this video only received about 46,000 views so far, after being up for a couple weeks on a 2 million subscriber channel. Not a good look. Regardless, Nicki Swift seems to be standing by their own shady work here, posting no corrections or apologies following this debacle. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and take a look at it for ourselves, and see why this video and the left-leaning pop culture Hollywood Reporter-like channel behind it are going after our boy, Chris Pratt.
But some people might not know that Ferris met Pratt while she was still married to her first husband, which makes it kinda strange that Pratt revealed to People magazine, "I knew I wanted to marry her pretty soon after I met her. It took a while for me to admit it because it would be crazy to be like, I want to marry you the first day I met her. But I could have."
Is this supposed to be the shady side of Chris Pratt or Anna Faris? If his wife was still married when they met, and then she left her first husband for Chris immediately, well that really makes the girl more shady than him. Sure, he could be seen as encroaching on a married woman somewhat, but I'm sure that feeling was being reciprocated in the first place. Bottom line here is this: Chris wasn't the one that was previously married. She was. So she was the one breaking her wedding vows and cheating if things in fact took place like that before their official divorce. And later in this story, it seems to be confirmed and believed that neither of these two did in fact cheat, so there's really not anything even wrong here to begin with. Perhaps you could say Anna Faris stepped out on her husband in an abrupt, rude manner, but how can we even be sure or know all the details of that marriage or that case? They could have already been separated for years or something. Who knows? What we do know for sure though is Chris Pratt is certainly in the clear here, and this first reason Nicki Swift gives to call Chris Pratt shady doesn't really defame the guy at all.
Pratt's career blew up with big-budget films like Guardians of the Galaxy, Jurassic World, and Passengers, to name a few. And Pratt's quick ascent to fame was reportedly tough for Ferris to deal with. An insider told People after the couple split in 2017, he was gone for a great deal of time, one movie after another. It made her very sad.
Okay, but here's the thing. Until we get proof this was all Pratt's doing for some nefarious reason, I'm actually more inclined to think his wife was the one who had trouble dealing with his rise to fame. Anna Faris was originally the more famous one in their couple. She of course starred in the Scary Movie franchise and the House Bunny film, among other big hits in the early 2000s. But by the 2010s, Anna's career had noticeably waned, while at the same time, Chris Pratt has grown and flourished. In fact, Chris has now become a much bigger A-list star than Anna Faris ever was. This likely upset and made Anna jealous, and I would bet dollars to donuts that it was her being pushed to the sidelines career-wise that really developed a rift between them. She couldn't take it, and unless we have proof Pratt became a jerk and was a dick to her in some specific reasons after he got more famous, well I would certainly put the blame on Anna Faris for letting things fall apart. She couldn't handle it and couldn't be be cool and deal with going from a star to the side star. So while I can see why Nicki Swift is going with this anti-Pratt angle here, it might make sense when presented in this biased way, but as I just said, it could also be explained much more reasonably the other way around. Really seems like to me, Nicki Swift basically thinks women like Anna Faris can do no wrong, and any mistakes in their relationships are automatically the man's fault, Chris Pratt in this case. And it's even Chris's fault when Anna flirts with and wants to be with him before she even left her first husband. With that said, this is classic social justice warrior moves, where they strip women of agency, that way they can never be at fault or to blame for their own mistakes. The next quote here comes from an anonymous source saying, Chris's ego has exploded. He's cocky and rude to Anna, who worries she's old news now. All the differences between them have risen to the surface. And I have to say, I'm going to definitely have to press X for doubt on this one. Perhaps Chris has an ego and he's become more cocky, but that's really not a crime in itself. And it's also pretty well justified since his career is doing awesome and he's well liked and doing a bang up job and everything. Now, the claim that he was rude to his wife is a little troubling and not cool, but it's certainly nothing too shady even if it's true. But the other part about having an ego and being cocky after becoming a world-renowned movie star and millionaire, well, that really isn't that surprising and it's not bad on its own. So you're going to need more support to show that his ego and cockiness made him do bad things and terrible things that are perhaps shady, because the whole being rude to his wife bit isn't going to cut it, especially without much support. And the next so-called anonymous source kind of contradicts that first quote we just went over. The next one says, Chris became this huge movie star and Anna wasn't getting any big jobs. She was the more famous and hot one at the start of their relationship, and then things took a turn. And this pretty much describes the suspicions and predictions I had earlier to a T. And frankly, both of these supposed sources could be right in their own ways too. Both sides of this claim are obvious ways that this whole relationship could have went south. And instead of picking one or the other, perhaps it is a little bit of both. I would still say that Anna was more to blame here since she was the one that had to deal with her own problems and couldn't be happy for her newly famous husband while also not getting big parts herself. But instead, Nicki Swift of course takes the female SJW side and tries to blame Chris Pratt for all of this as if this whole situation and relationship rests all upon his shoulders alone, when it really doesn't.
That there was once a warrant out for his arrest. It all started when Pratt accepted a role in 2005 Strangers with Candy. Pratt, who lived in Los Angeles at the time, lied about living in New York because production wanted to hire locals only.
So basically, Chris Pratt said he lived in New York City to get a job on a TV show there. Then there was some random arrest warrant placed on him for not paying some stupid insurance ticket. Really? This has got to be the most boring and uneventful list of shady things about someone I've ever seen. Come on, Nicki Swift. It couldn't be clearer that you have an agenda here against this guy. Not only is Chris Pratt extremely likable, friendly, and non-controversial, he's also a talented performer who most people enjoy enthusiastically. But since he is a straight white male, SJWs like coming after him time and time again. And since this controversy popped up about his t-shirt being supposedly offensive a few weeks ago, well, that prompted Nicki Swift on YouTube here to try and trend surf that topic and get some views on the waves of this non-controversy. And nothing proves this controversy was fake and drummed up by biased SJW haters better than this example of Pratt getting an arrest warrant put out on him over not paying some boring insurance tickets. Next, do you want to see how Nicki Swift responds when even they realize this is an absurd thing to condemn Pratt for? Check out the cringe in this next clip.
In the end, Pratt's flub cost him a whopping $3,000. While some might argue that an insurance ticket is no big deal, we find it a tad shady that Pratt let things escalate to the arrest warrant stage.
No, it would have been shady if he actually got arrested and went to jail for something. Instead, he forgot to pay a ticket and then was reminded of said ticket by a possible arrest. But this was not an actual arrest, just a warrant for his arrest, which Pratt quickly responded to and cleared up immediately and officially. Pretty much a non-story here, or at the very least, a cute side story you would tell on a late-night TV show, like where this story came out. Chris Pratt openly admitted to doing this, so it's not even like he's hiding it. And it's certainly nothing that's shady, not even a tad bit, like what's being suggested by Nicki Swift here. Basically, this whole thing is a pathetic attempt to throw shade at someone who doesn't really have a shady side at all. The arguments are so weak here, it actually hurts to watch. And we can all see through this charade easily.
Sometimes Pratt can be insensitive, a trait he put on display in 2016 when he offended some members of the deaf community. It all started when he appeared in a promotional video that Marvel posted to Instagram, in which he told viewers to turn up the volume and not just, quote, read the subtitles.
Okay, wait a second. You're saying if someone gets offended, it automatically means the person they are offended by is doing it on purpose and is guilty? I don't think so, lady. Especially in current year where SJWs get triggered by everything. This is certainly not true at all. But even under normal circumstances, people can get offended for random unknown reasons. And I would think this deaf people thing falls into that category. An actor telling people on Instagram to turn up the volume is not intentionally trying to offend deaf people, a small minority by the way. For another example, does doing sign language or subtitles automatically offend the blind people? Because I don't think so. And this complaint here about Pratt is just as goddamn ridiculous. In the end, like I said earlier, just because someone or even a small group, just because they're offended by something, doesn't mean that person did something wrong or is shady. And Chris was likely reading a script and or following instructions from the Marvel PR team when he was making that supposedly offensive Instagram post. So just because the deaf people showed up and got triggered at Pratt doesn't mean he's at fault or he was being shady and not including them on purpose. And really, this brings us back to the core of this issue today and the problem we're going over here. The SJWs who are against Chris Pratt, they think they hate him because he's supposedly shady and has done bad things, but really, it's another reason why they don't like him. As we said since the beginning, Chris gets hate because he's a straight white male who also goes to church and sometimes seems to have a conservative lean to him. And this is the real reason leftists and SJWs and Nikki Swift don't like the guy. But since those reasons sound wrong and biased and offensive, because they are, well, this makes these haters here resort to other excuses to justify their bias against Pratt. And in that same way, the deaf people who came after Chris also mirror these left-wingers who don't like him either. All these groups have silly, reaching, out there reasons to justify their hatred of Chris, but at the end of the day, we all know it's just because he's white and successful and people like him and laugh at him. And that ending part probably really burns the liberals here too, because they of course are the opposite of Pratt right now. Not only is the regressive left losing everything and not successful, and they're failing in every political battle and arena ever, but they're also very unlikable and off-putting to the average person. So to say they're jealous of Chris Pratt's success and likability is almost an understatement. And to say Chris Pratt is shady or offensive at all, well, that's just plain false. What do you guys think? Is there really a shady side to Chris Pratt? Should he keep getting backlash like this, or do the jealous liberals in the press need to leave our guy alone? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video or if you like Chris Pratt, and until the next video, we'll see you all next time.